First principles of civilization. Every civilization is composed of individual civilized people, that is, where civilization denotes the many, man denotes that which is recursively supplied to construct a civilization. Civilization is of the many, but it is composed of individuals, each as one. One can start with the law of identity. What may be predicated of anything is wholly determined by the definition of that thing. Thus, civilization is simply the recursion of what defines a man. Here we have a problem: evolution. Evolution means that there is a definition which defines man. This means that we have to consider, have human beings evolved to become this thing called man, or are human beings still evolving to become man? The word man may be meant as a synonym for human being, or it may designate an achievement of evolution. So, we have to trace it down and make sure that when we use the word man we are talking about one and the same thing. Definition: law of identity as applied to the foundation of grammar. What may be predicated of anything is wholly determined by the definition of that thing. Historically, one may be able to repeat a law of identity after a number of fashions, and yet be unaware that it implies two distinct applications, one to each part of speech. One is arithmetic, while the other is geometric, or again, one is established as a one-to-one correspondence, while the other is proportional, or again, one is called literal and the other metaphorical. In short, the law of identity applies to the definition of a thing, which is a binary, producing a binary distinction in application. In short, one may parrot a law of identity, but show absolutely no intelligence in applying that definition in reasoning. One might guess the answer to the question about man being civilized if they actually know and hold on to the meaning of civilized. Or again, has civilization ever been accomplished on the earth to date? We want, however, a standard and not guesswork to answer this question, for it is certainly not a matter of opinion. The very fact that one assumes that they can read, hinges upon the meaning of information processing. What does that mean? What does it mean to process information? It means the ability to parse relatives in accordance with a standard, by asserting correlatives in order to make some one thing which has a particular purpose, or as we say, meaning. Things, in of themselves, have no meaning. It is what we, or something else means when we, or something else makes these things, or something like this. This brings us around to the how and why of parsing. When we process information in regard to a thing, to determine if it is, or is not, for example, a man, we have, or something else has, to parse some relative difference. We have two parts of speech, relative differences which are a given, and correlatives, limits placed on those relatives as a process of making some one thing. From this grammatical fact, we are ready to examine ourselves to see if we are, or are not a man, and thus are or are not civilized. Thus, by material and shape or form, we find things either useful, or by reparsing, useful or more useful than before. Thus, parsing means we have a predetermined use, or if parsed by something not considered intelligence, simple chance parsing will usually do for an explanation. So, we can treat the previous into and convert it to a simple metaphor. We can parse, for example, wood, and make countless things like clocks and houses, or a volcano or a meteor can render wood into ash. Parsing, in of itself, is not a product of intelligence, but intelligence is that which takes advantage of parsing in order to accomplish some one thing. What is that one thing? A volcano or a meteor works wood to advantage, we do. Thus, the foundation of our behavior is aimed at human advantage, unless we are as dumb as liquid or solid rock. Definition: intelligence is one's ability to take advantage of information parsing in order to make life-supporting products. Thus, one may be aware of this as fact, or one may be unaware of it, or one may be unaware of this as fundamental. Definition: a thing is a relative within correlatives. The relative is called a verb, or material difference, or substance, and it is a given. The correlative, also called a thing's limit, shape, form, also known as a noun, is applied. The application of correlatives may be produced by environmental factors, or they may be produced by standards effected to afford human advantage. All living things have to work in order to survive. One can say that every form of life is composed of a number of life support systems, each of which takes advantage of the environment in order to contribute to sustaining and maintaining that life. That is, every life support system has its own work to do. Each life support system does its own work in order to contribute to the life of the whole organism. In advanced forms of life, there is not only these life support systems, each of which takes advantage of individual areas of the environment, but one which processes memory. The ability to process memory means predictive behavior, therefore, that which we now call mind is rooted in memory, which allows us to construct predictive virtual and real models. Models allow us to test our predictions before committing to a more permanent change in the environment within which we live. Thus, intelligence is leading us to complete ecosystem control, or in a metaphor or two, to have dominion over the earth, or again, being led to the promised land. Memory then allows us to use the recursion of experience. This fact has come down to us historically in the mythology concerning the all-seeing eye. Memory allows for the recursion of experience, the same experiences to be reused over and over again. What then evolves is our ability to manage memory, which is composed of past information. We are a mind. A mind is potentially the most powerful life support system possible for a living organism. Memory allows us the ability to process information for our advantage. Memory depends upon information parsing, or again, the definition of a thing. Within our history, there have been sources which tried to teach us that information consists of two parts, a relative difference as a given, and the parsing of that relative difference by what are called correlatives, shape, form, limits, etc. To make anything, we take some material as a given and apply correlatives to it, thus reshaping it. Thus, as even the computer teaches us, there are two and only two parts of speech, some relative as a given, and methods of parsing that relative to make the computer an information processor. This binary, when applied to understanding grammar systems, produces exactly four categories of grammar. We simply take our two elements of the intelligible definition of a thing and apply it to a specific thing called grammar. As a thing, in of itself, grammar is composed of a binary. There is the symbol set and methods of recursively using those symbols to produce a grammar. We have, historically, named these four systems of grammar, forming a grammar matrix, 2 times 2 equals 4. Their names are common grammar, arithmetic, algebra and geometry. Each of these use a different method of recursion. Common grammar is relatively unordered, arithmetic well-ordered, while algebra is a combination of the previous two, using both. Geometry does not use relative symbol sets, but one based on an arithmetic one-to-one correspondence between the hand and the two parts of speech. It is also wholly metaphorical. As Plato said openly while implied in the Bible, geometry can be then used for proofing every grammar, even itself. Secondly, the output of geometric reasoning is independent of time. Output of a figure is commensurate with the input. Third, it is exact. In short, geometry can be said to be the only exact science we have. However, it also requires the greatest level of intelligence. As our mind can only process information in accordance with the definition of a thing, in accordance with two parts of speech, and since this can only be achieved by intelligence, it also means that there never has been, on the face of the earth, any civilization of men. Civilization is not achieved by anyone's consent or opinion, but is based on biological fact. By the definition of a life support system, there are yet no, or almost no, men on this planet. There are billions of human beings, yet none, or very few, who are intelligent enough to achieve a civil state of behavior. What few there are or have ever been, are at constant risk from the more primitive, uncivilized portion of humanity. Man is becoming, but man is still not. By definition, There is no such thing as an illiterate civil man. If there are no correct grammar books, there is no standard recognized or established for human behavior, that is, no civil behavior even for the job of an individual mind. In short, the most powerful life support system for a form of life still does not yet exist among humanity. Therefore, there is no civilization today, or ever has been, on Earth. The demand for geometric construction for any line of reasoning, once imposed by the ancient Greeks, was not placed there as an arbitrary thing. It is placed there because binary recursion always produces a binary result. Binary recursion, irrespective of any chosen member of our grammar matrix, cannot contradict itself. We use construction to simply make sure that we have not contradicted ourselves. Thus, those who abolished constructibility were not concerned with truth as a functional mind is, but were only concerned with flattering themselves with their own words, the thinking process of a savage mind.
False words are not only evil in themselves, but they infect the mind with evil. Phaedo by Plato,